Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our Cryptoeconomics channel. You can find our channel very easy on YouTube and all our socials to follow our work. Now, today we're going to continue with the fourth course of our fundamental analysis, which will be titled BRICS and De-Dollarization, where we're going to talk about this parallel financial system which is being created by the BRICS countries and the process of de-dollarization of the world, which is currently underway. We're going to start by talking about the BRICS countries, everything you need to know about this alliance of the global south, and then we're going to continue on de-dollarization and the process of practically taking out the dollar as the global reserve currency, which is in full effect. Now, I would advise you to also find our webpage, that's cryptoeconomics.tech, where you can also follow our work and you can find our latest videos. We're practically preparing everything so far, and trust me, there will be a lot more coming. But so far, as we mentioned, you can find our Cryptoeconomics channel on all our socials and YouTube channel, obviously, as well as our cryptoeconomics.tech webpage. Now, we're going to start with mentioning that the India summit of BRICS has concluded more or less around April, May of 2026. Don't forget that the summits of the BRICS countries is not only a few days. Sometimes it takes several months for all these different, I would say, different collaborations between highest representatives of all the BRICS partner countries and the BRICS member states to take place and to be concluded. Now, as we've mentioned, the India BRICS summit have just concluded for 2026. With which practically the Indian representation or the presidency is finished for this year. We will see who is going to be the next one to lead the BRICS summit. Although this year's summit wasn't that successful and there was not a lot of decisions being made, the reason mainly goes to the Iranian-US war. We know that Iran has its representative, since Iran is currently a full-fledged member of the BRICS countries. Iran has had its foreign minister practically being part of the summit in New Delhi, in India. And unfortunately, there are, I would say, members of BRICS that are currently on two warring sides. As we know, after the integration of the new batch of BRICS countries in 2024, currently, Iran, Russia, and China are being found on one side of this war, in Iran, obviously. And on the other side, we have the United Arab Emirates, which are currently also partner, actually a full member state of BRICS, as well as Saudi Arabia, which still haven't approved its membership, but still it's very close to this alliance, which are currently on the other side of this war. And India, which is a big supporter of Israel, unfortunately. So for this reason, we haven't seen, I would say, big decision being made during the India summit. Additionally, there wasn't even a joint statement from all these countries after the ending of the summit, because unfortunately, the global south in this particular case did not know which side to take in this case as a support. But in any case, the summit was successful. There have been some decisions made, not as the previous summits, like the one in Brazil, and especially in Kazan, Russia, in 2024, when we had the largest enlargement of BRICS in the recent decade. And regarding what was actually decided, something that is new and very important for the duration of this summit, first of all, is that on the world stage, the global south should start acting as a unit. What does that mean? We have all these, I would say, very important world institutions like the United Nations, like the World Trade Organization, IMF, World Bank, etc., where all the member states of the BRICS countries are asking to step up unitarily. So practically for them to have a bigger, I would say, representation and a larger force when they are trying to influence the world's decision. Additionally, very important decision was made for the economic and supply chain resilience, as this bloc is currently facing, I would say, particularly harsh actions by the Western powers to try to stop its growth. Obviously, by lowering and making them, I would say, easier for compliance, the all the measurements that we have for protection of their main, I would say, market. All these countries are trying to find a way how to better cooperate, as you can see, improve supply chains, and even in some cases remove barriers for trade in for obviously for imports and exports. Now, this is something that the BRICS alliance is working very hard on, since its main source is actual economics. So the BRICS alliance is first of all economic alliance, and then everything else. We're not going to talk about the healthcare part, which is not important for this particular video, but the innovation and digital public infrastructure also, where they're asking on collaboration among themselves when we are talking about research, about development, about everything that is practically useful for all these countries together. So they're calling on making this as a priority for all the research that is done regarding different technologies, different industries, to be more or less collaborated among the member states, which will actually give them, I would say, edge over the Western society. And sustainability and climate sensitivity, this is something we're going to talk when we come to the characteristics of the BRICS bloc, what is currently held by this bloc. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about the situation in the BRICS bloc from geopolitical point of view before we try to compare what does the BRIC blocs have right now and why we think that this is the future of, I would say, the world right now among the BRICS member states. Now, the first important thing, as we've mentioned before, is unfortunately there was no statement from the BRICS alliance because of the Iranian war. But if we compare to see how it's progressing, we can see that in the current decade, it has grown substantially. From the basic, I would say, BRIC alliance, which was holding only Russia, China, Brazil, and India, it have grown with adding South America in South Africa in 2009. But later on, during the 2024 enlargement, it had added 4 new member states, which are very important part of the alliance right now: Iran, United Arab Emirates, Ethiopia, and Egypt. We are still waiting for the decision from Saudi Arabia, and it had added a big amount of partner states. So the total amount currently is around 20, although there was no enlargement, neither in full membership nor in partner countries. Yes, also we need to mention that in 2025, Indonesia got a full pledge membership in the BRICS alliance. There is also around 10 to 12 partner states that are currently part of the bloc as well. So 10 full member states and around 10 to 12 partner states, which are currently also part of this alliance. Now we can see currently all the full member states over here. Now, if we continue to compare how does the BRICS bloc fare against the Western powers, which is very important, we will see why the whole world is seeing the BRICS as the future. First of all, when we're talking about the purchase parity, which is one way to see the GDP of the countries, and also it shows you how rich is the population in these particular countries. It shows you that the main member states are quite rich, I would say, when you compare their basic population. Like Russia, China, India are currently one of the, as we can see, biggest purchase parity, practically GDP countries in the world. As we can see, comparing to the European countries currently, China and Russia have a bigger purchase parity, I would say, than all the member countries of the European Union. Although we take the whole population of the country to understand this measurement, but it doesn't change the fact that we can see that a lot of these countries are actually very wealthy, even if they're under sanctions, even if they're under war. We can see that the standard of the country is quite high. Now, this is the first thing. Second thing, we can see that these countries they own biggest part of the territory of the world, the population of the world, and the resources of the world. We're going to start with the population. We can see that India and China together only are accounted for more or less than 1/3 of the full population of the world. This is 2025, where they have around 2.8, almost 3 billion people, which is more than 1/3 of the population of the world. And you can see in the top 10 countries, only America is currently from the global West. We can see that Indonesia, which is also a member state of BRICS, is here with one of the biggest populations in the world. Pakistan, which is currently applying to be a member state. Nigeria, which is a partner state. Brazil, full member state. Bangladesh, which is applying to be a state. Ethiopia, full member state. Mexico was forced not to apply, unfortunately. Japan is one of the Western countries as well. And then Egypt, full member state. Philippines, somewhere in between. The DRC, this is Congo, also have applied to be a member state of BRICS, which shows you in the top 10 to 12 by population countries in the world, we can see that not even close comes the Western powers. Where are here France, Germany, Italy, England, which are, as we can see, just one fraction of the total population of the world. This is why BRICS will rule the world next. Now, if we continue and to see the total population of BRICS after the last enlargement, and this is only from the main BRICS states, we can see that currently there is around 4.5 billion people which are part of the BRICS alliance. In this case, it shows you that more than half of the population is currently part of BRICS, which is obviously the main resource that this bloc has, and the other one doesn't. If we take the G7, which is actually the main representatives of the Western bloc, we can see that to this day, 2025, the last time it was measured, they are still representing for a bigger part, almost double from the GDP from the world. We can see 27% on the side of the BRICS countries, and we can see 45% on the G7 countries. But when you see that most of the population and the territory is in the hands of BRICS, as well, now we're going to show you that most of the resources are also in the hand of BRICS, this is just a matter of time before it changes. Also, if we see how the growth compares between G7 and BRICS countries, we can see if we take the last measurements, as you can see, this is quite recent from 10th of November 2025, and Visual Capital is completely Western platform, so it means cannot be said that this is a propaganda from Moscow or Beijing or Peking. What we can see is that currently from 2025 and 2026, what is projected, again, all the BRICS member states are projected to be at least 3, 4, 5 times faster growing than the G7 countries. Again, some of the people would say, but they are advanced economies. That doesn't change the fact that in this particular case, the economies that are not advanced, obviously, are growing several times faster than the advanced G7 countries, which means it's just a matter of time before they take over the GDP of the world and the dominance of the world. It's not about what you want, it's about what is the reality. Now, the fastest growing major economies in 2025 and 2026 from all the economies in the world, not only G7 and BRICS countries, we can see that most of them are, again, either full member states or partners of BRICS. India, full member state, way faster than anybody else in the world currently. Indonesia, full member state. China, full member state. Brazil, full member state. America, UK, Japan, France, and Germany are the ones that are represented from the G7. And Russia, which has been heavily sanctioned, is still in the top 10 countries of GDP growth in the world. That is showing you that no matter how much they're sanctioning them, no matter what they are doing to them, these countries are coming to take the dominance in the world. Obvious from the results. Now, another thing that we need to also take in consideration is the technology. We can see that the previous 5 waves of technological growth have been on the Western sphere. The first 2, obviously, we're talking from the moment that the steam engine was discovered in 1800s, have been in the English Empire, followed by in the 19th century taking over from the English were the Americans with their empire. And now, obviously, everybody can see it. The next step of technological evolution will not be in America, it will be in China. And the next, I would say, wave mainly will be renewable energy and resource efficiency. And we can see that China currently does own companies in all the highest and most important technological categories in the world, as we can see. All these companies are China based, and they are, as you can see, represented in the highest and most, I would say, advanced and needed technology currently in the world. When we're talking about the resources, this is how it looks like when about the natural gas. Now, natural gas, LNG, these are the highest producers of natural gas in the world. United States and Australia are obviously on the western part of the, I would say, economy. But Qatar, Russia, Malaysia, which is also applied to be a partner, Algeria also applied to be a partner, Nigeria is partner state, Indonesia, full member state, Egypt, full member state. With the exclusion of the first two, the rest are either applied or are part of the BRICS alliance, which means obviously they have majority in the production of the LNG sector. Unfortunately, currently we have a very big blockade on the Hormuz Strait, as we know, at this particular moment with the second closure of the Strait of Hormuz after the new escalation among US, Israel, and Iran. There is absolutely no oil leaving this sector. But it doesn't change the fact that regarding oil production, we can see that currently these 2 years before the start of the Iranian war, the top producers of oil were part of BRICS alliance, one way or the other. Russia, full member state. Saudi Arabia, still waiting on an approval. United Arab Emirates, full member state. And the rest, obviously, Venezuela is unfortunately currently under, I would say, occupation from the US. And if we go down the list, we can see that currently there is plenty of states that are currently part of the BRICS or their partner states. As we can see, we saw the first top four. If we continue downwards, Iraq will apply to be a partner state, China full member state, Iran full member state, United Arab Emirates we already mentioned, Brazil full member state, Kazakhstan full member state. If we continue onwards, practically we can see that there is a lot of states that are either part or will be part of BRICS. So with the exclusion of the top two countries, we can see that currently we do have a lot of capacity among the BRICS country states. Now, additionally, what we can see is that BRICS countries, knowingly that this is coming, especially from the fossil fuel shortage, or I would say control from the Western powers, obviously they have started diversifying with renewable energy. As we can see over here, India, Brazil, and China are the leading countries which are investing heavily into renewable sources, like in this particular case. Now, if we compare to see how much of the renewables are actually being developed and used by these BRICS countries, we'll see that most of currently the, I would say, production of renewable energy is coming exactly from the BRICS countries. Currently, China produces around 30% of the total amount of renewable energy in the world. And currently, very important, this year, more than half of the produced energies in the BRICS countries coming from renewable sources, which is an amazing accomplishment from these countries. Additionally, around 88% of the full amount of electricity produced in Brazil is coming from renewables, mostly from hydropower, as well as India, after China, is the fourth largest producer of renewable energies. That tells you that these countries are leading the way for renewable energies as well among fossil fuels as well. Additionally, regarding production of food, which is extremely important, agricultural production of the biggest countries in the world, we can see that in first place is China, which is currently producing around 20% of all the agricultural products in the world, followed by India, and if we exclude United States, which is the third party, Brazil, Russia, and later on Indonesia are practically one of the main, I would say, member states of BRICS, which practically tells you that from the top 8 producers, around 6 are from the main member states of BRICS. Next product that we're going to check is the wheat. In this case, very important because it's one of the main basic products for production of food or consumption of food. But you can see the top 10 leaders of production of wheat are also, most of them are practically from the BRICS countries, China, India, Russia. As we can see, these three are producing practically most of the, which obviously shows that the dominance of production of this main product comes again from the BRICS countries. Later on, we can take as an example also fisheries, which are also production and catching of fish in this case. Also, we can see similar results. China, Indonesia, India, Vietnam, all members and partner state, except for Vietnam, partner of the BRICS alliance. If we continue, Peru, which is none here, none there. Russia, same situation, full member state of BRICS, which means we can see that regarding food, the BRICS states will definitely not have a problem. Later on, if we continue, which are the largest freshwater resources rich country? Again, this is something that is going to be very important in the coming years because freshwater becomes less and less available in the world. What we can see, similar situation. Brazil, with the largest freshwater amounts in the world, which is again BRICS member state, Russia BRICS member state, China BRICS member state, Indonesia BRICS member state, India, Myanmar, which probably will be BRICS member state, and some smaller countries. But mainly Brazil, Russia, and China are practically holding more than a third of the total amount of freshwater sources in the world. Also, when we're talking about, I would say, resources from the ore part, the iron ore production, we can see that currently, with exclusion of Australia, mostly comes again in the BRICS countries. Brazil, India, China, Iran, Russia, all of them BRICS countries, and later on Canada, which is the only G7 state. And then we're coming again to South Africa, which is again a BRICS country state. If we continue forward with the rare earth minerals, and we can see that 95% of the production and practically, I would say, resources by themselves, rare earth minerals, are currently held by China, which means that practically with this particular part, BRICS is dominating the world, and we know how rare earth minerals are important these days. Similar situation we can see regarding gold. Now, obviously, since all these countries that you see in the top 5 are practically, with the exclusion of Russia, ex-colonizers, like America, Germany, Italy, France have had extensive colonies. That's how they have managed to get so much gold, since these countries do not own, with the exclusion of America, gold resources. We're talking about ore and mines. But obviously, when you have enough colonies, you can be the top holder of gold in the world. But this is going to change. Why? It's not important how much you have in reserve. It's important what else is there regarding gold. First of all, this is currently how much gold there is in reserves by country. We can see that, these are the countries that are accumulating. China has been accumulating the most in the recent decade, followed by India. Over here we have Poland and Turkey, Singapore. But again, China and India, as you can see, are way, way bigger accumulators of gold than all these later on, as you can see, by country. And if we continue forward, we can see not only by accumulation, by also production. Currently, the largest producers of gold are Australia and Russia. As we can see, uncomparable, Australia and Russia are leading this part of the market. And later on comes who? South Africa, China, and we can see Brazil, Kazakhstan also, etc., which are, as we can see, all either member states of BRICS or their partner states of BRICS. As well as, obviously, over here is confirmed one more time that the production is mostly on the side of the BRICS countries. So it means that, again, it's just a matter of time before this part is taken over by the BRICS states as well. Now we're going to go forward to the de-dollarization part, and we're going to see what is happening currently in the dollar losing its value and practically losing its dominance in the world. Now, for most of the people, when we mention that the dollar is losing its value and its priority in the world, obviously it's a shock, but the reality unfortunately shows us something different. As we can see over here, this is currently a chart represented again by their own institutions, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which shows that until 2020, the dollar has lost around 99% of its value in the last 100 years. This shows us that currently America is doing it to herself. Why is this happening? Because of the enormous amount of printing dollars which has been done by the Federal Reserve, especially for it to be lended to the country itself through their balance sheet. What you see over here is the portfolio of the Federal Reserve, and this is the amount of dollars that the Federal Reserve, which is the Central Bank of America, has loaned to the American state, $6.7 trillion after a massive quantitative tightening. And the top was around $9 trillion, or a quarter of the debt currently that is owned by America has been practically loaned by its central bank, which is printing money like there is no tomorrow. We can see that in the last century, the tempo of printing actual dollars and letting them loose in the economy has been fastly growing in the right top corner, which means with this, the inflation and the devaluation of the dollar currency has been going faster and faster. Additionally, this is one of the largest debts ever recorded in the history of humankind. $39.2 trillion is currently the debt that America owes to its own institutions and outside, obviously, investors. And on top of that, let's not forget that currently America had to pay $1.2 trillion on a yearly level just to service this debt. Until this month, which is currently June of 2026, this year they already are close to $900 billion only in interest rate payments. And let's not forget that the fiscal year is finishing around October, which means they have a very good chance to pass the previous year of $1.22 trillion only for interest rates. This is just to service the debt. Let's not forget that the highest amount of, I would say, inflows for this country is around $4 to $4.5 trillion on a yearly basis. And they are currently currently using in their budget around $6 to $7 trillion just to pass the year, which means that they are facing budgetary deficits on a yearly basis, which are getting ever larger. Now, on top of that, obviously, when the world is seeing this, we can see that most of the countries are deciding that they are not going to hold treasuries or dollars as reserves in their currently central banks. Now, the amount of, I would say, global foreign exchange reserves held in dollars is around 57%. Now, it doesn't mean a lot, but when you see that in the 2000s, it was around 70 to 72% of the global reserves, and now it's around 57. It shows you in the last 20 years, it has lost a tremendous amount of power around the world. This is the chart coming from JP Morgan, which dates even further backwards and obviously is created by the International Monetary Fund. We can see in the 60s that this percentage was around 85 to 90% of the total global reserves, for it now to fall halfway down. Now, important part that we also need to mention is that this is not only that countries are deciding not to hold dollars in their global reserves, but also they're deciding to differentiate into different currencies. As you can see, in the 90s, there was no other option. Now, from the 90s onwards, we can see that the euro is one of the, I would say, strongly used currencies for this type of reserves of the countries, as well as over here, we also need to mention the Chinese RMB, the pound sterling of England, the Canadian dollar, etc., which means more and more countries are deciding not to hold dollars. This is one of the strongest signs of de-dollarization in the world. Now, when we ask the artificial intelligence to make us a chart of what do we expect the de-dollarization trend to continue and how will it look like, it took information from the International Monetary Fund, which is part of the NATO alliance. So this cannot be proclaimed as a Russian or Chinese propaganda. We can see that the IMF is expecting the de-dollarization or the lower and lower amount of global held reserves to be in dollars to continue going down 0.6% every year. And by 2040, it's expected to be less than 50%, around 48% of the total reserves to be in dollar. Now, who is actually helping this happen a lot faster? We can see that the Chinese currently in 2010-2012, they had $1.3 trillion worth of treasuries from America. But now they have managed in the last 10 to 15 years to cut half of this amount to 652 billion by the March of 2026, which shows you that the BRICS countries are currently the largest sellers of US debt, and they're the ones trying to get rid of everything connected to the dollar. Why? Because they're being punished for actually holding dollars while they don't follow what America will dictate. As we can see, from 2010, this is not only China. We can see that Brazil, India, South Africa, and Russia has followed the same example and have sold practically most of its US Treasuries reserves. February 18, 2026, what we can see, that the largest buyers of US Treasuries are who? The largest, I would say, servants of the American empire, starting from Great Britain, Belgium, Japan, Canada, Norway. Nothing surprising over here. But we can see that the global south is slowly waking up. For the last year, China has sold $86 billion worth of American treasuries. Brazil 60, India 47. Then if we continue for the other parts of the BRICS alliance, like Hong Kong, which is part of China, which sold 10 billion, the South African Republic, 6.5, Indonesia, etc., we can see that most of the BRICS countries are heavily selling the US treasuries. On top of that, obviously, by following the example of Russia, which has around 300 to 400 billion dollars of, I would say, state reserves, which are frozen at the moment, and also the tariff, I would say, fiasco that has been happening in 2025, they have learned the lesson that they need to diversify exports and imports, reserves held, and usage of the dollar. Now, this fiasco has finished as what it started, absolute fiasco, where Trump thought that by implementing tariffs, he will make the world follow whatever he wants. Unfortunately, this wasn't the case. Even the 145% tariffs which were implemented on China did not do the trick. Unfortunately for them, their own Supreme Court has decided that the president didn't have the rights to do this. And currently, all those hundreds of billions of collected tariffs, they need to pay back to whoever they collected them from, which were not India, China, Russia, etc., but their own companies on their own soil, which were forced to pay these tariffs. But again, the problem in this situation is that not everybody obviously understands economics. And if you continue forwards, you can see they're currently 4th of June. This is just 7 days from when the video was recorded. They're still fighting not to give back this amount of, I would say, tariffs they collected, 166 billion, which again is one of the biggest clown shows that was ever done on American soil. And unfortunately for them, they even continued with new way of collecting tariffs, which there is a big chance that the Supreme Court will strike back again. But let's see. In any case, we know that this is constantly true. Taco, Trump always chickens out. And in the same situation, what did he do? He actually removed most of the tariffs. Now we're in a situation where countries don't even know if there are tariffs or what are the tariffs or what they need to pay or who they need to pay to. It's an absolute mess over there. So what do we see here? We can see that most of the BRICS countries decided to diversify from investing or exporting to America, except for India, which is for some reason trying to go in the steps of China, since now they need a new factory in the world. And since China is going their own way, America has to find a substitute. Instead of bringing the industrial complex back to their country, they're trying to find another country with cheap labor to put their factories in. And that's why we can see that India has practically advanced its exports to America. But with exclusion of India, we can see that all the countries are diversifying their exports, like Russia, which came to absolutely zero exports to America. And we can see everybody else is following the trend, which means they do not want to be dependent on America. And that's why they're exporting somewhere else. Obviously, countries are figuring out that you can survive without America as a partner. Now, BRICS countries, as you can see, are heavily diversifying and mostly among themselves. Now we can see that the trend is coming to the point that BRICS countries are understanding that they need to start collaborating among themselves economically even more. Although this is an artificial intelligence, I would say, image, it doesn't change the fact that the truth is not that far. Currently, we're seeing how America is giving the torch to China to be the largest economy, to be the largest player in the world. And as the economists have said, never interrupt your enemy when he's making a mistake. Trump is not making a mistake. Trump is making all the mistakes alphabetically and chronologically that can be done currently. So why would China stop them when they're going exactly where they're supposed to go? Well, we need to understand that the most important power of America is not their nuclear weapon, is not their army, it's their petrodollar. And their petrodollar currently is the only, I would say, force which they're using to practically silence or fight their enemies. Take, for example, Russia. By taking them out of the SWIFT system and not allowing them to use the dollars for a trade currency, they thought that they can break this great nation. Unfortunately for them, not that easy. And on top of that, we need to understand what is the petrodollar. So, petrodollar is actually the explanation that there is a pact between Saudi Arabia and America from the 70s, when there was a large embargo from the Arab states to America, that from that point onwards, all the transactions that are currently being done by the OPEC alliance, which is also the biggest producers of oil, crude oil in the world, it will be traded exclusively in dollars. That was the idea, and it was actually being implemented until recently. And obviously, this is the only power that the dollar has. They are currently the only resource standing behind this toilet paper in a green color, which we are calling dollars, is the actual oil. But recently, things have changed. And we are currently witnessing the petrodollars less days. Not because I said so, but because their own, I would say, largest institutions are doing so. JP Morgan, which is the largest bank in the world, on July 1st, 2025, said the de-dollarization is a real deal, and it's happening, and it's hitting exactly where it hurts. It's hitting in the petrodollar. We have this, I would say, article, which is a little bit older, but is currently even more into effect. Around 1/5 of the global oil trade is being done out of the dollar currency, 2023. When we asked if this is still the case, the artificial intelligence have also confirmed that yes, to this day, still 1/5 of the total amount of transactions of oil in the world are being conducted out of the dollar currency. On top of all this, let's not forget that most of the producers of OPEC, the largest countries, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Oman, the United Arab Emirates, the Bahrain, and Kuwait, are all situated on the Arab Peninsula. And with the exclusion of Oman, most of them are very dependent on the Hormuz Strait, which is currently completely closed. So with the exclusion of these two pipelines that are coming from Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, which are around, I would say, 10% of the total production and export of oil from this part. The rest has to come through Hormuz, which means currently Iran is doing everything it can to stop this power from being still used by America, which means if Iran takes a hold of the Hormuz Strait and does what it does right now, it implements the procedure of all the oil that is bought from this Arab Peninsula, especially from the Persian Gulf, being bought instead of in dollars in UN, we are having a complete new shift in power in the world. Because unfortunately for the Americans, they didn't understand that most of the power of the petrodollar is coming exactly from the Persian Gulf. So currently, Iran is saying whoever wants to cross the Persian Strait, the Hormuz Strait and the Persian Gulf, they have to pay for their oil in UN. Automatically, the petrodollar goes out the window. If they're going to succeed or not, we will see. But currently, this is exactly what's happening. Iran is trying to completely choke off the petrodollar, and with this, the absolute dominance of America in the world. Now, additionally, we can see that not only the petrol, the oil in this case, we can see that the total amount of trade currently in BRICS is being shifted away from the dollar, which means it's possible. How do they do that? We can see currently Russia, as an example, has managed to do 90% of its trade, and Russia is currently the fourth largest economy in the world. It has just taken over the place of Japan. 90% of the trade is happening in ruble or in Chinese yuan. China has managed to more than 50% of its exports to be done in their own renminbi or the Chinese yuan. India, 90% of bilateral trade in the bloc is being done in rupees and other local currencies. Brazil, 30%, etc., etc. So if we see the total amounts of, as you can see, the export being done out of the dollar, we can see Russia 90%, India 90%, China 40 to 50%, Brazil 30%, and BRICS average is around 25% of all transactions from the BRICS countries are out of the dollar. Something unimaginable 50 years ago. Now, like it or not, this is the reality and it's happening in front of our eyes. On top of that, currently BRICS is trying to accomplish something unseen in the, I would say, newer history. What are they trying to do? They're trying to implement their own blockchain-based financial system, starting with their own currency, which is called the unit. The unit has been launched in October 2025. And although it's still in a pilot phase, unfortunately, it's currently one of those, I would say, financial units, financial instruments that can actually dislodge the Western corrupt and completely controlled financial system. Now, this unit or this currency will be backed by 40% in gold and 60% of a basket of currencies, in this case, the main 5 currencies of the main 5 countries. So this balance will be controlled by the Shanghai Golden Bourse. This is the Shanghai Golden Market, which is the largest golden market in the world. And in this case, obviously, the 60% of the currencies of the other countries are giving it practically the dynamical part of the currency itself. But again, this is first time in recent history that somebody is trying to make a gold-backed currency. And again, it's going to be a blockchain-based currency, and it's going to be launched on the Cardano blockchain. Again, don't forget, this is still in a, I would say, pilot phase. But the idea is that this currency as a blockchain will be used by either the mBridge, which is the CBDC platform developed by BRICS countries, or by BRICS Pay, which is a private company that transacts among BRICS member states in blockchain manner. When we're talking about the CBDC platform, that's the mBridge. This is a platform devised by Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Hong Kong, China, and Thailand, which is currently being used for intra-governmental transactions. And obviously, the unit is one of those currencies that are currently allowed to cross this particular, I would say, platform. Let's not forget that every country on the mBridge platform will have its own node, which means there will be no absolute control like what's happening right now in the SWIFT application or SWIFT system from America and the Western countries. Now, in this particular case, with the mBridge CBDC platform, they're completely taking out the financial system from any potential sanctions, repercussions, etc., etc., which means the financial system will be completely free from all these potential geopolitical escalations in the future. As well as for the BRICS Pay, as we have mentioned, this is a privately owned application, which helps any, I would say, person that is traveling to the BRICS countries to be able to pay in their own currency and to do it anywhere in the BRICS countries. They literally use this application and they can pay with their own card using their currency, and the other side is also receiving the currency of the local country that they're visiting, which is actually very, very good. Additionally, as you can see, the BRICS payment system, which is currently being developed, is made mainly on blockchain, which is one of the best parts for us. Also, the BRICS Pay application allows you to use a lot of different blockchain currencies. We're talking about the currencies that we currently use in the crypto sphere. And on top of that, as we said, the decentralization of the system is enormous. There is no more centralized power. There is no more sanctions. There is no more practically punishing a whole country for what several world leaders done among themselves, which is actually one of the best things we can actually find in today's world. And I really hope it will work. But let's not forget again that the currently unit is in a pilot state. So currently it's being tested by the BRICS countries, by the BRICS institutions, and hopefully soon it will become reality. So with this, we can actually finish the, I would say, presentation for today. I would ask you again, if you haven't, to follow our channel, Cryptoeconomics on YouTube, and to practically be part of our journey of education of a fundamental and technical analysis. This is currently the first channel as such in Malta, which is actually working on education on fundamental and technical analysis for everybody that wants to invest in the crypto sphere. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Have a good day from warm Malta.